Cool.
All right, let me now welcome on a very special guest, the head men's basketball coach at Macalester College, Abe Woldeslassie. How are you doing today?
Tony, doing well, man. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I guess I guess my first question will start how you ended up becoming a coach, because you obviously played at Macalester and St. Thomas, and then was there a point in your basketball journey that you were like, I want to coach when it's all said and done, or kind of when did you realize that?
Yeah, like most kids growing up, right? Our dream is to play in the NBA, right? And so you're
Yeah.
playing, and all of a sudden, like, yeah, I may not make it. But I knew I always wanted to be around the game, whether that was as a coach or, at the college level or a high school coach, high school teacher. And I would say that started, even in high school, and so played through high school, graduated from St. Thomas Academy in 2004, and then graduated from Macalester in 2008, and then started coaching like 4 days after graduation. I graduated on a Saturday in 2008. And then that Tuesday, I flew to Las Vegas. And then I started working Wednesday at a place called Impact Basketball. And that's how my coaching journey started.
Yeah, so you obviously had a very interesting journey to where you are now. And there's a lot of coaches, especially nowadays, Nick Nurse, the guy who was with the Raptors. You have a very long journey sometimes, and I know like he coached in like the English basketball league, and I
Yeah.
always find that interesting because it takes a lot to end up where you want to go. So, did you, I guess, when you realized that you wanted to be a coach, did you map out a plan, or did it just kind of happen organically?
Yeah. So I knew I wanted to coach and I was willing to go wherever the jobs were. And so, yeah, I was in Vegas for a couple of years at Impact Basketball. And then, I came back home to Minnesota. I grew up here in Minneapolis. So came back home and I knew I wanted to be at the college level. At that point, I was like, I don't really want to be at the NBA level. And at that time, I didn't want to be at the high school level. And so I was just applying to college jobs all over the country, and then was able to get an offer from a Division III school, Bowdoin College in Brunswick, Maine. And so that's how my college journey started. And from there, I didn't know where it was going to go. I just kept following the jobs and tried to do the best job I could where I was. And that ultimately led to the next job and the next job.
Yeah, your situation with Impact Basketball is a very interesting way to start your coaching journey. How did that kind of help you to where you're at now and kind of make you into the coach you are today?
Yeah. So, Las Vegas, and this was back again in 2008, was like the mecca of youth basketball. So with AAU tournaments, we actually trained a lot of players, from youth players all the way to NBA players. And then you had the NBA Summer League. So if you're a basketball fiend, right, like Vegas was like the best place to be. And so I was able to, again, train some youth players up to, NBA players, and just was able to see, that level, right? I mean, these are some of the best players in the world, international pros. We did a lot of NBA pre-draft training, and I was able to meet agents and other coaches and front office folks. So it just exposed me, because again, I grew up in Minnesota. I had never left our state. And so it just showed me a whole new way of doing things, and just met a lot of great people.
Yeah, so you obviously had a few Division I stops, and then your first season as a head coach. How much different is obviously your responsibilities are way different as an assistant coach and your situation with Impact Pack basketball, but was there anything that was like unexpected that you're like, I didn't think this was going to be that hard? Because obviously you're wanting to be a head coach your whole life, or whenever you find out you want to go into coaching. Kind of what was that first year like for you?
Yeah, you're talking about the first year at Macalester, right, as a head coach?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, again, prior to that, I was at 3 Division I schools. So Dartmouth, Davidson, and Siena. So Dartmouth's in New Hampshire, Davidson's in North Carolina, Siena's in New York. It helped that I was coming back home, right? Like I went to Macalester, I played here. Some of the professors that I had when I was a student were still teaching here. Although we did have a different AD, and then the same president from when I was a student here. But I think the familiarity of just, again, growing up here and going to school here helped. but you never, like, you don't know what you don't know, right? So just going from being an assistant coach at Siena to head coach at Macalester, of course, there are always going to be some growing pains. It was a situation where the team had won 3 games the year before I was hired, 3-22. And then, my first year, along with our associate head coach, Connor Nord, we went 7-18, right? So our school's not a place where we recruit from the transfer portal. You really have to build it with freshmen. And then over time, right, those freshmen become sophomores and juniors. And slowly but surely, our program has improved every year. But I just say going from an assistant coach to a head coach, you just have to go through those reps and have to learn along the way.
Yeah. Well, the most interesting thing I think with Division III athletics is obviously that there's no scholarships. So, as someone who obviously has experience at Division I schools recruiting kids on scholarship, how different is the recruiting process for you and the team building process? I'm assuming it's very helpful that you obviously played Division III basketball, but kind of for someone like you've seen it at the D1 level, how different is it at the D3 level?
Yeah, it's definitely harder, right? Like, we don't have athletic scholarships. Our college, we have academic scholarships and then need-based. And so they're not full athletic scholarships, of course, like Division I, even Division II. So the first thing is, we start with getting the transcript of the student, because if they can't get into school, then there's no point in recruiting them, right? Like, our academic standards are really high. So we'll get the transcript and we'll give it to admissions. And then if they say, proceed, like this is a student that has a chance of getting in, then we usually set up a call with their family and just get to know them more and see what they're looking for. Because a lot of the recruits we're recruiting as juniors in high school, most kids are looking for Division I and Division II offers. So we do have to be patient, but we really talk about the academic rigor at our school, the opportunity to maybe have a chance and earn playing time right away, as to, maybe going to a higher level and not playing early. And then again, like I said earlier, we don't recruit from the transfer portal. So we've only had, this will be my 6th year as head coach, we've only had 1 student transfer in, and we've only had 2 players transfer out, right, in 6 years. So we recruit, generally, we try to bring in 3 to 5 players every year. And then again, over time, our winning percentage has gone up, our conference seating has gone up, and we feel like we'll have our best year this year. So.
Yeah, you've obviously done an impressive rebuild. You mentioned you took over a program that wasn't winning that many basketball games. When you entered the head coaching role, obviously, did you map out a plan that you're like, in year 1, I want to be here, in year 2, I want to be here? Or what was the 6 years process of getting to where you are now, being one of the more competitive teams in your conference, and how's the rebuild happened?
Yeah, it's been a lot of hours, a lot of sweat, a lot of downs and ups. But when I first was interviewing for the job, I met with all of the current players, on that team, and they were firing questions off. And one of the players, this is back in 2018, he had asked, where do you see this program in 5 years? And I said, my vision is, for us to make our first NCAA tournament in school history. So, and all of them in the room, right, in theory, wouldn't be on that team, right? Because 5 years later, everyone would have graduated. We don't redshirt guys and no grad transfers, all that. So I challenge those players, like, every year our senior class has to get us a step further and a step further and a step further. And so there are 11 teams in the MIAC. St. Thomas left a couple of years ago, and then St. Scholastica came in. So we still have 11 teams. So our first year we finished in 10th. Our second year we finished in 9th. Our third year was COVID. We only played 4 games because that was just our school's policy. But we went 2-2 in year 3, right? So that's technically 500. And then year 4, we finished in 6th place and made our conference championship game. And then last year was year 5. We finished in 4th place and then hosted a first round playoff game. So 10th to 9th to 6th to 4th. And we want to keep climbing and win it all. So it's just been a year by year process and putting in the work every single day. And now we're at a point where we feel like we can contend for a title.
Yeah, totally. So, main reason that I guess I'm speaking with you today is obviously you guys are going to play the Gophers on Thursday, 7 p.m. at the barn. And it's something that Minnesota has done the past couple of years, playing a local Division III program. What's the process of setting that game up?
Yeah, I'd really like to thank Coach Ben Johnson, Coach Dave Thorson. They're the two that agree to it, right? Like they have to be the ones that say yes. I don't get to
Yeah.
make that choice, and so I really want to thank them for doing that. And even growing up again in Minneapolis, I was a big Gophers fan as a kid. So it'll be really neat for me now to be able to coach my alma mater, like Ben is coaching at his alma mater, and for us to be able to compete against them in an exhibition. So yeah, I had reached out to them, and then they agreed to it, and then you got to sign the contract and make it happen.
Yeah. And so looking at it as a head coaching point of view now, how important of a game is it for you to learn about your team playing someone obviously playing at a level higher than you guys are, playing a Division I program on a big stage? How important is that for Macalester College?
Yeah, this will be our first time in 101 years, right? 1922, that Macalester and Minnesota, both of our varsity teams, are playing against each other. So it's been you and I were not alive the last time it happened. So just for our school, for our community, I've gotten so many nice emails and texts about like how cool it is that we're just getting this opportunity. And whether we win or lose the exhibition, at the end of the exhibition, we're still 0-0, right? Like it doesn't count towards our record. So it's just a chance, I would say, A, to represent our school, B, challenge ourselves, right? To play a team that is a Division I team, that's a Big Ten team, that is on athletic scholarship as opposed to we're not. And then just see what happens, right? I mean, it's ultimately you always want to compete and see where your team is. So our home opener is November 8th, so it'll be the following week. So it'll just give us a chance to see where we're at going into that home opener.
Yeah, so I don't know if you have a relationship with Coach Johnson, but obviously being from Minnesota and as a head coach, I'm assuming you're aware of the things going on. And obviously it's his first few seasons at the program. What, I guess, as you're now scouting the Gophers, what do you see them as a program and see him as a head coach?
Yeah, it's his third year, right, as head coach. So I know the past couple of years the injury bug is hitting their team, and so my hope for them is that they're as healthy as they can be coming into this season, have some more continuity. I know the way we have to recruit at Macalester and they're recruiting at Minnesota, they're two very different things, and they have quite a few players from the transfer portal, and maybe a few grad transfers and things like that, but. Yeah, it's the Big Ten. I would argue if it's not the best league in the country, it's maybe the second best league in the country. And there's no easy nights, and every single game is a battle. So I just hope that they can be as healthy as they can be going into this year, and make a run in the Big Ten tournament. But they definitely have some work to do. But that's why he was hired and his staff, and I'm wishing him the best this year.
Yeah. So, obviously, as someone who grew up in Minnesota, a few years ago, the high school basketball scene was not, or even when you were in high school, the high school basketball scene in the state isn't as good as it is now, I would say. So, as someone who's recruiting, watching all these games, and comparing it to other places across the country, do you try to only get Minnesota? Obviously, not only Minnesota players, but like what? How do you enjoy watching Minnesota high school basketball, and kind of how would you describe that scene as someone that sees everywhere across the country?
Yeah, I would agree with you. The level of talent now, the level of play in the state, whether it's the high school level, the AU level, is as good as it's ever been. And you just look at the NBA, right? And I don't want to forget anyone, but whether it's Chet or Jalen Suggs or Zeke Naji or Tyson Trey Jones or David Roddy, or Jericho Sims. And I feel like I'm forgetting someone. But anyways, there are a lot of players that are in Gary Trent Jr., right? There are a lot of guys who are who either grew up here or played Minnesota high school basketball now in the NBA. So it's really cool for me now as a coach to be able to see that. We recruit nationally. So right now we actually only have one Minnesota player on our team, Marcus Crawford, who went to Edina High School. But we have guys from the Midwest, all over the country. And then we even have 2 international players, one from Senegal, one from Nigeria. So with I would say our academic requirements and the fact that we don't have athletic scholarships, we have to be creative in how we recruit. But thankfully, Macalester is able to attract students again from, we have students from every U.S. state, so all 50 states. And then we have students from over 90 countries at our college. So very diverse student body, great location, amazing facilities, especially for our level. And so I think it's an attractive option, for kids who are looking for schools like ours.
Yeah, I see you got some pictures up behind you. You got Coach John Thompson, and
I've
looks
got
like
John Thompson and John Wooden, right? So
yeah,
it's two of the all-time greats. And
yeah.
if you see up here, there's like a Macalester sort of collage that a friend of mine gave to me a few years ago. So yeah, in the office right now.
Yeah. Would you say those are the 2 guys you look up to the most, or are there any other coaches that you try to take things that they do and put it into your own strategy?
Yeah, growing up, again, as a Gopher fan, I really was a big Clem Haskins fan. I used to go to all of his camps as a kid. I was a big Georgetown fan as a kid. Like a lot of 90s kids were into Georgetown, and Allen Iverson and Patrick Ewing and Alonzo Mourning, Dikembe Mutombo, kind of maybe a golden era of Georgetown basketball. And then John Wooden, there'll never be another to win as many titles as he did. And so, and then I've worked for some great coaches. I worked for Coach Bob McKillop at Davidson College, who was an amazing mentor. I worked for Jimmy Patsos at Siena College. I worked for Tim Gilbride at Bowdoin College. That was my first college job. And then also Paul Cormier, who I worked for at Dartmouth. So that was my first Division I job. So yeah, I like to think I take a little piece from them, and then some, from my playing career, and you try to put it together and build your own philosophy.
Yeah, so probably a lot of my fan base and people who follow me, they obviously know the Gophers and they don't know Macalester.
Yeah.
So how would you describe the identity of your team heading into this year? And for anyone going to the game, what are they what can they expect to see from your team this season?
Yeah. So again, last year, we finished in 4th out of 11 in our conference last year. We have 4 of our 5 starters returning, led by Caleb Williams, who is the leading returning scorer in the MIAC this year. He was 3rd last year, but the 2 guys ahead of him graduated. So, he's the leading returning scorer, 21 a game, all conference and an all region player last year. And then Kobe Gold is a 6'2" guard from Denver, Colorado, who was also all conference, tremendous 3-point shooter for us. And then I would say Noah Shannon is another starter who's a Swiss Army knife for us, just does a little bit of everything. So I'd like to say that people watching us would say we're a disciplined team, we're an exciting team. And then we really share the ball. I'm 5'7". I've been a point guard my whole life. I've always been like the shortest guy on every team I played on. And I'm obsessed with players who know how to pass. So not only can you see the pass, but can you make it? And so we spend, as simple as this sounds, we spend a lot of time in our practice working on right-hand passes and left-hand passes and bounce and behind the back and over the head. And so I hope people would say that we're a disciplined team, we're a fun team to watch, and we're a great passing team.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all I got for you today. I really appreciate you doing this again. And again, anyone watching this, Gophers are taking on Macalester, 7 p.m. on Thursday at the barn. Should be a great game, and best of luck the rest of the season, Coach.
Tony, thanks so much. Thanks for everyone for listening, and go Scots. This would be the one game I can't cheer for the Gophers. Other than that, I'm cheering for them. This is the one time I can't. So, but thanks again, Tony.
Yeah.